Okay, so today I have a bunch of drugstore and affordable makeup products that are better than high end. This is one of my favorite videos to do here on my channel because there are truly so many good products out there. And I feel like no matter how many of these videos I do, I always have more products that I want to talk about. So some of these products are tried and true favorites. Some are a little bit newer to me, but everything is a really great price. I do want to say thank you to Walmart for sponsoring today's video. I absolutely love shopping on Walmart. I have honestly discovered so many amazing finds in all different categories at really great affordable prices. I told you recently that I got the most beautiful chair. I'm thinking about getting one in a different color for a different part of my house, but so many of you said that you were interested in it or you actually purchased it and you just wanted more info. It's available at Walmart. It is gorgeous. Every time someone comes to my house, they ask me where I got it. And honestly, I get so much of my home decor and furniture on Walmart. The dressers behind me, I actually get a lot of questions about those. Those are on Walmart. I got my bed recently from Walmart, a little picnic table that my son is obsessed with for the summertime, rugs. I mean, you can find everything on walmart.com. They're actually one of the first to get a bunch of the new drugstore launches, including the new e.l.f. Soft Glam Satin Foundation. I just ordered this in a new shade, so I'm going to be using that in today's video, as well as some of my other go-to products from e.l.f., Milani, NYX, but I'll also be sharing some products that you might not have tried. I actually have a new brand called Pretty Smart, which I recently purchased on Walmart as well, and I'm excited about some of their launches. So I'm going to link everything that I talk about in the description box below. I'll link the furniture favorites that I mentioned as well in case you are needing some new furniture too, but you can find everything on walmart.com. I'll pin a comment below as well so you can check out everything that I share with you. I'll also list all of the shades that I use in today's video as well. So let's get started. Okay, let's start with primer. So I'm actually going to apply a little bit of eye primer first. This is from e.l.f. It is a newer launch. It's called the Lock It Down Eyeshadow Primer. I wasn't using eyeshadow primer super regularly for a little while just because I found that concealer and powder kind of did the job for me. And then I tried this and I remembered why I loved eyeshadow primer so much. This actually does extend the wear of my eyeshadow. This is very creamy. It applies really nicely. And I actually like to take it under my eye a little bit where I apply concealer because I feel like it helps it to not crease as quickly and it wears really well throughout the day. So I'm going to let that dry for a second while I apply face primer. This is one of my all-time favorites, the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. This one is the version that has 4% niacinamide. You absolutely do not have to spend a lot of money on face primers. e.l.f. makes pretty much all of my favorites and they have a lot of different options. So no matter what type of skin you have, however you like to prime your face, you're going to be able to find something. They have matte options, smoothing options, glowy options. You'll see this one is very glowy. Personally, I like to really work this into the skin so my skin gets a little red as I apply this. It is a thicker primer. It's very hydrating. It's pretty sticky. So I feel like the best way to apply it is just to make sure it's really blended into the skin because that way you get a nice even application and you can tell that this primer is sticky. Like it definitely has a tackiness to it, but I am telling you, your makeup will not move all day long if you're using this primer. Like I said, I am going to be using the e.l.f. Soft Glam Satin Foundation. So the new shade I purchased is 20 Light Cool, which I actually think is going to be perfect for me. I was avoiding the cool undertones because I thought they might pull a little bit too pink, but I think this line as a whole does run a little bit yellow. I think this could be a perfect shade match. So I thought I would use it in today's video because I love this formula. As for brushes, I did pick up 2 sets from Profusion. Profusion makes so many of my favorite brushes. If you watch my videos regularly, I actually reach for Profusion brushes over high end. I have a bunch of Profusion brushes I just washed last night that I'll be using in today's video as well, but these sets are such a good option if you want to try brushes from the brand. They're really affordable, but in my opinion, they truly are better than high end and they hold up so well. I've had some of my Profusion brushes for years. So in this set, it's the Face Essentials set and it comes with their buffing foundation brush, their tapered powder brush, and then also their setting powder brush. So if you haven't tried this e.l.f. foundation yet, it is so stunning. I have been reaching for this over pretty much all of my other foundations lately. It's an $8 foundation that really does outperform foundations that are like 4 or 5 times the price. The nice part about this foundation is it's very adaptable. It's very customizable. So you can go in with a light layer and get more of a natural finish if that's what you tend to go for. You can definitely sheer it out if you use a damp sponge, or you can build it up, which is what I tend to prefer to do, but I'll show you what just one light layer looks like. Okay, this shade is so, so much better for me. I'm glad I went with this one. But again, what's nice about this is because it is a satin foundation, it could really work for you no matter what skin type you have. I also love this formula because it does last so well. It's very, very warm where I live lately. Like we've been experiencing such a hot summer, which normally it can tend to be a little bit more mild, but even on very hot, very humid days, like this foundation holds up so well. It also just layers very, very beautifully. So I'm telling you, you do not have to spend a lot of money to get high quality. Okay, so here's what one layer looks like. It looks really, really gorgeous. I'm going to layer it up just a little bit so you can see what it looks like if you're someone who does like to layer your foundation. My husband and I are actually going on a date night tonight, which I'm excited about. It's been a little while. My mom is going to watch the kids. So I wouldn't say I'm going for like a full glam look, but I'm going for something a little bit more glam than every day. So I'm just going to build it up on my cheeks a little bit where I've dealt with some breakouts and kind of over some of the areas on my skin that tend to be a little bit more red. And you'll be able to see it just layers so beautifully. It doesn't look heavy. It doesn't look cakey. It's just a very easy, effortless formula. Okay, so for concealer, I actually have a new product to talk about. This is such a good formula. It is the Pretty Smart Conceal and Appeal Concealer. So I have the shade 200 Light Neutral. This is such a good formula. So Pretty Smart is actually a new brand on Walmart. I'll be using a few of their products in today's video. To blend this out, I'm just going to use the Profusion Flat Setting Powder Brush, which you can use for powder, but it's also great for creams or liquids as well. But anyway, this is a newer brand on Walmart, and their whole thing is luxury quality products at affordable prices, which is obviously one of my favorite things too. This is a very high coverage concealer. So if you have dark circles, if you have a lot of redness, this is going to be a great option if you have discoloration. And this concealer does not move all day long. So it is such a nice option for the summertime when it's hot out because it's not going to melt off your face, but also on days where you just want your makeup to last, which for me is pretty much every day. Like if I'm going to wear makeup, I want it to stay in place well. This is the Can't Stop, Won't Stop powder, and I have the shade Light. So I'm just going to go under my eyes. I'm actually not going to really over apply this. I don't know if this concealer claims to be like a self-setting concealer, but it's that type of formula where you don't really need to set it with a lot of powder. It dries down pretty fast, and honestly, like it really does not crease quickly at all. So if you're not someone who likes to use a lot of powder under the eyes, or just in general, I think you'll like this formula. It's definitely not like an overly dewy or extremely glowy concealer, which I feel like is what a lot of brands have been doing lately. But I tend to prefer something that does kind of dry down and last throughout the day because for me, this is the area where my makeup can tend to break up the fastest. So it's nice to have a very long wearing concealer. And then this powder is nice because it just locks everything into place really well. Now, if you go in with a lot of this powder, it does have coverage. So you can get more of like an intense full coverage look by layering this on top of your foundation, but a little bit works well too. It's very matte. So again, a great option for summertime or if you have more oily skin. So for the brows, I'm going to be taking the NYX Thick It Stick It Brow Gel, which is my favorite. And I'm just going to be running this through my brows to kind of fill them in and lock them into place. I use the shade Espresso. NYX honestly makes such good brow products. I think they make the best brow products. Not only do they have just like a really good range of products to choose from, they have the best shades. And honestly, that's like half the battle when it comes to brow products and maybe a lot of other products in general. But I feel like so many brow products either run way too warm or they're just way too dark for a lot of people. So NYX is my favorite because they just have a ton of options to choose from. So I like to just comb this into my brows and make them appear just a little bit thicker than they are and let it dry before I fill them in. Okay, I'm going to give that a second to dry down before I fill in my brows. For eyeshadow, I'm going to be using the Profusion Eye Essentials set. So again, this one comes with 3. You get the firm blending brush, the small pointed brush, and then also the flat precise brush. I actually own all 3 of these. Like, let me just give you a look. These are just some of my Profusion brushes. I swear I have so many because it is a brand that I tend to repurchase. Like, even if I already have one brush, like this one is the ES2, I'll repurchase it like 2 or 3 times just to have more on hand. So I'm just using the firm blending brush just to take a little bit of eyeshadow very close to my skin tone and I like to just kind of set that eyeshadow primer into place. And I'm just using the lightest shade from my beloved e.l.f. I Love You Latte Quad. I've gone through so many of these because it just comes in handy no matter what type of look I'm doing. I usually reach for one of these shades. I just picked up another one of the Lift and Snatch Brow Tint pens because I used mine up fully. I can't tell you how many times I've repurchased this. So after I apply the brow gel and it's pretty much dry, I just run this through to kind of fill in any sparse areas. It darkens up my brows a little bit, but I just think it looks very realistic compared to a brow pencil. I do like a brow pencil sometimes to kind of define the arch and extend it a little bit, but I do think a brow pen gives you like a true realistic appearance. There's the difference between my brows. I feel like for me, especially like right in the front of my brows is where I need just a little bit of help, but it's nice to kind of run it through just to darken them up as a whole. For eyeshadow, I'm going to be using this little quad from Pretty Smart. I thought the color story was gorgeous. I do love a good cool toned eyeshadow palette, but in general, I don't necessarily need a super large one. So I liked the fact that this had 4 shades. It's a little bit colorful without being like full on, you know, pastel or neons, nothing too over the top. I just kind of liked these like subtle purpley pink tones. I'm going to start pretty light and soft with this. You can build these shadows up, especially that darker brown, but I like this formula because it is a little bit of just like an easy buildable formula. I used to really prefer really intensely pigmented shadows no matter what type of look I was doing. And there definitely is a time and a place for really very pigmented products. But sometimes with eyeshadow, I find that a nice buildable formula is nice because you can start off light, you can gradually go darker, but I don't always tend to do really dramatic looks these days on the eyes. And if I'm using like an overly pigmented formula before I know it, I have like an intense smoky eye. But this shade is really pretty. I used to almost exclusively wear like pink and purple eyeshadow, and I kind of got away from it, but I just thought it'd be fun for our date night tonight. I don't know what I'm going to wear. I have like a yellow dress that's kind of floral, or I have a black dress. Okay, let me do the other eye off camera just to save some time. Next, I'm just taking this purpley tone in the palette and working this into the crease and the outer corner, not really to darken things up a little bit, just to add a little more color. I think these 2 shades together, it's nice that cool tones have made a comeback. There are so many warm palettes out there, and there's not enough cool toned palettes. And I am enjoying this quad because I feel like all 4 shadows flow together so beautifully, but you can also just go in with like a combo of 2 or 3. You don't have to use all 4 of them at the same time. Again, this shade is very easy to build up, blend out. It doesn't end up looking patchy on the eyes at all. I think I'll quit there with this shade, so let me just do the other eye. I think I will take just a little bit of the darker brown in the outer corner. This is a pretty rich shadow, especially compared to the 2 lighter shades. So I'm just going to use a very small amount just to darken it up a little bit. I don't really want to go for a full-on smoky eye today, but I feel like a little bit of drama in the outer corner is nice, especially for date night. And I'm just using this fluffier crease brush just so I don't end up with too much shadow there. Okay, I feel like that's perfect. So for the lid, I am going to take the shimmer shadow, which is so pretty. It's very creamy, very smooth, and it just gives your eyes the most gorgeous, just kind of like, I don't know if I would call it a full-on metallic. It's a soft satin. And normally, again, I feel like my makeup preferences have changed a little bit because I used to only prefer really over-the-top intense metallics. But I feel like this quad is perfect for kind of like a soft glam look. It has like the perfect amount of shine. It's not over the top, but it is very smooth looking. So I feel like it just kind of pulls the whole look together. So I'm just going over the lid and just kind of blending it up a little bit with my finger. And then I guess I'll take the crease brush I was using just to make sure everything is really well blended. And that's pretty much it. I'll do the lower lash line too. For the lower lash line, I'm going to be using the small pointed eyeshadow brush from the kit, and I think I'm going to take the purpley tone and just run that along the lower lash line. Nothing too intense, just enough to tie things together. There is no fallout with this palette. Even though the shadows blend really easily, they aren't overly powdery at all. So for eyeliner, NYX actually came out with some new shades of their Epic Ink Liner. It's a fairly new launch. I haven't really seen anyone talk about them. There are some really light browns too. So if you do prefer like a more like medium toned brown, even a lighter brown, there are some good options to choose from. I kind of want to try one of the lighter ones too, but I went with dark chocolate. just because I figured, oh yeah, this is perfect. It's lighter than black, but it's still not super light. Like when I wear eyeliner, unless it's colorful, I usually still want it to be pretty dark. So I like the idea of this one because it is like a darker chocolatey brown, but you can tell it's not black. So I'm just going to apply this to my upper lash line and then create a wing as well. I love a good brush tip liner because it just tends to glide on. So if you're someone who has a hard time with felt tip liners, if you find that they drag on the eyes or they kind of pull, which for me, as I get older, I notice more texture on my eyes, and sometimes felt tip liners don't go on as smoothly. Definitely try a brush tip, and this one from NYX is really great. And again, it's very affordable, but I do find that it performs similarly to some of my other high-end favorites. I'm just going to take the lightest shade from that e.l.f. quad again, just to lightly highlight my brow bone. For mascara, one of my favorite formulas of all time is the Milani Highly Rated Anti-Gravity. They just came out with a waterproof version. I haven't tested this out. I thought I would test it out today because, again, it has been so hot outside. I actually don't have an issue with the original one flaking or smudging on me at all. But I thought I would test out the waterproof version to see if I noticed any difference, and then I could share that on my channel as well, because I know some people do prefer a waterproof mascara as like their go-to, especially in the summertime when it is hot outside. I think the issue that I don't deal with a lot of transfer is just because my lashes are a little bit shorter. If you have very long lashes and they're constantly touching like your eyelid throughout the day, I can see why non-waterproof mascaras might end up transferring on you a little bit more. I will say, I kind of like the way this one is going on a little bit better. The original one is a very wet formula, so I find that it can be kind of hard to build it up initially. Like once it dries out a little bit, like if you've had your tube of mascara open for like a month, it usually performs a little bit better. This one feels not dried out. It just feels like it's not as wet as the original, so I feel like it is building well, which is great if you want more of a dramatic look. I mean, this already looks really dramatic. So let me just build this up and we'll see how it looks. Okay, I really was not expecting to see a big difference between this one and the original one. The original one is dramatic, but this is even more dramatic. We'll see how it lasts throughout the day if my lashes fall, but I almost think it gave me a lot more volume and length than the original one does. And I think it's because it was easier to build up because the formula is just not as wet as you initially open the mascara. So I'm excited about this one. My lashes look longer, they look thicker. I'm curious to know if this is going to be difficult to remove at the end of the night. I use the Garnier waterproof micellar water, and that removes pretty much any mascara. So as long as it comes off easily, this might become my new go-to. I just really like the way my lashes look, and I feel like even though it is a waterproof mascara, like they're not falling. Sometimes waterproof mascaras can feel a little bit heavy on the lashes, and I don't like to curl my lashes, so usually I just want something that kind of lifts them, and I feel like this did a really good job. So I am very, very happy with this. Okay, I'm going to go in with my cheek products. I'm just applying a little bit more powder. Actually, I'm going to apply a little bit of concealer to that freckle on my nose too, because I am going for a more full coverage look, and typically that's what I do when I go full glam. Okay, so for bronzer, I'm going to be using the e.l.f. Primer-Infused bronzer. I have the shade Tan O'Clock. This is what really got me back to using powder products regularly. I was on such a cream bronzer kick, cream blush kick, and I still love those, of course, but I just felt like bronzer or powder products couldn't really compare until I tried this, and it just looks so good every single time I use it. It has such a creamy texture to it, and it just melts into the skin in the most perfect way. The NYX Buttermelt blushes and bronzers are really good too, but those definitely have a glowy finish to them. This one's not glowy. It's very matte, but it doesn't look dry or powdery or cakey on the skin. It has a really smooth finish. Just taking a little bit on this Profusion flat, what is this one called? The flat setting powder brush, and running this down my nose. For blush, I've fallen in love with an older favorite that I still think is better than a lot of high-end formulas. A lot of high-end brands are doing baked blushes these days, but the Milani baked blushes are really, really gorgeous. They've been around forever. I have quite a few shades, but I actually didn't have this really pretty pink tone, so I think I'm going to go in with a very small amount of this. It's pretty pigmented. So I'm just going to go in with a little bit of this to add some color to the cheeks. Really pretty. I've actually been into pink blush lately, which is something that I don't know, I go back and forth on. As a whole with pink makeup products, like I never have an issue with pink eyeshadow. I always love it. Pink lip products and pink blushes though, I feel like they really have to be the right tone of pink for me to love them, but I feel like pink blush really has been so pretty lately, so I've really been enjoying it. The Milani blushes are very light, very airy, so they don't feel like you're wearing a lot of product on the skin. They just look really fresh, very natural and pretty. For highlighter, I'm going to be using this palette from Pretty Smart. This is their all-in-one face palette. So you could use these as eyeshadows. You could use this one as a blush. You could use it as a highlighter, whatever you typically go for. I'm just going to use this center shade right here. This formula kind of reminds me of the Satin eyeshadow. So very soft and pretty. It's not going to be over the top. I mean, you could build it up, but what I like about this formula is it can also look very subtle, very smooth on the skin and just give you a little bit of a glow. An over the top highlighter is nice sometimes, but sometimes you don't want that. So it just kind of depends on your mood. But I do always like to have a little bit more of a subtle highlighter in my collection too. And this is the perfect formula because your skin looks like it's glowing, but it doesn't look like you're wearing a ton of highlighter. It just kind of melts into your skin in a very natural, very pretty way. I feel like it's hard to over apply this, which is nice. I'm also going to use this in the inner corner too. So again, kind of like a satin finish rather than a full-on metallic finish, which I just think is really soft and pretty. Okay, for the lips, I'm going to start with one of my favorites, the Hard Candy Instapout Lip Liner. I think I'm going to go with the shade Perfect Match, which is a little bit lighter than the gloss I'm going to be using, but I just want to slightly define my lips. I don't necessarily want to add a ton of color or make them a lot darker. And this formula is nice because it is creamy, but it stays in place extremely well, even if you're wearing like a lip oil or a lip gloss on top. I actually might take a little bit of the deeper shade. This one is Boyfriend, and I'm going to use this kind of along the outer corners. And then for lip gloss, I ordered a new shade of the e.l.f. Sun Boss Gloss. I love this so much because it actually has SPF 25 in it. So it's a really nice option if you're going to be outside and you want to reapply sunscreen to your lips, but you also want a little bit of color, a good amount of shine. This formula is really pretty. It's kind of balmy, so it's very comfortable, very, very moisturizing. This one is in the shade It's Your Mauve, or It's Your Mauve. I love this color so much. The one I have is kind of like a brighter, lighter pink, which is really nice for everyday looks, but this is a gorgeous, kind of cooler toned nude with almost like a little bit of berry to it. Honestly, I think the lip is probably my favorite part of the look, or it just kind of pulled everything together. I love the color so much, and I feel like that gloss paired with that lip liner is like a perfect combo. So anyway, thanks for watching and hanging out with me as I shared some of my favorite affordable makeup products that I think are so good. Skip the high-end alternatives, try these, you won't regret it. I'll link everything in the description box below, but you can find everything at walmart.com. So thanks again to Walmart for sponsoring today's video. I'll also pin a comment with everything that I used, brushes, makeup, all of my favorites. So thanks for being here. If you like affordable makeup videos, I have a ton of them on my channel. I'll link a few on the screen for you, and I'll see you very soon with a new video. Bye.